Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Ayin Hey Amud Aleph, the second line from the top. The Gemara quotes the Mishnah, Ein soilin es ha-Pesach, loy al hashvud, v'lo la askela. One cannot roast the Korban Pesach with a metal spit. The reason being because when the metal gets heated up, then the rest of the metal also gets heated up. The cham miktsosoi cham kuloi, says the Gemara. And thereby, it's the metal that's then roasting, that's heating up the meat of the carbon. And the Torah says that it has to be eish. It has to be tzli eish, v'lo tzli machmas dover acher. Similarly, when it comes to a grill, when the animal is put on a grill, again, the same principle. When the metal is being heated up, so then it'll cause the rest of the metal where the animal is on to be heated up, whereby it's heating up the animal instead of the fire itself. And again, tzli eish, omer rachmana v'loi tzli machmas dover acher. The Mishnah then goes on to say a ma'isa of Rabbi Gamliel, who instructed his Eved Tavi to then go ahead and roast on a grill. Ask the Gemara right away, Maisa Listor. That's a contradictory Maisa. On the first, the Mishnah states that it's also to then go ahead and soile the Korban Pesach on a grill. Then it brings the Maisa saying that Rabbi Gamliel instructed his Eved to, yes, go ahead and roast on the grill. Answers the Gemara, Chesire Mechsero Vehochiktani. The Mishnah is as if it's missing words. And you have to put in the following. V'im askela menukeves mutter. In general, one cannot roast the Korban Pesach on a grill. But now the Mishnah qualifies and states that if that grill is menukeves, that means it has a very large area that is open. In other words, the entire animal really is in this hollowed out area of the grill, and therefore it's only this the spit of the rimon tree is really just getting support from this grill, but the animal itself is not on the grill, then indeed it is mutter. And that's what the Mishnah says. Whereby then the Mishnah brings this Maisa, say that it has this hole that is hold, whereby the animal will be in this hollowed out area of the grill. Boy mine Rav Chinina bar Idi bar Rav Ado bar Avo Tanor shehisiku beklipe orla. If the tanor, a regular oven, is heated up, it gets its fuel from the klipe orla. That means the orla tree, which is off limits the first 3 years, it's aser bahano. If some of that fruit, the peels or of that fruit tree, is now being used to then heat up the fuel of a tanor, of an oven, v'garfoy va'ofa boyes hapas, and he removed the orla, the klibe orla, whereby it's only now hot from the fuel, and then he went ahead and he baked bread, ledivrei ha'oiser mahu. The one who says, there's a machlokes tanoim, but the one who says that if you have the klipe orla, that will then go ahead and cause the pas that it fueled up to be possible, to be something that's osir. When you take out all of that psoiles, and you're left with no psoiles of the orla, just the heat that it had left, and that now bakes the bread, mahu, what's the din? Asked the Gemara. Omar lei. So he answers him, Rav Ada bar Ava answers and says, hapas muteres. The pas is mutter. Because now you no longer have the klipe orla that has been removed, and therefore it's okay. Omar lei. Asks Rav Chinina bar Idi, Omar Rav Chinina Sabo, Amar Rabbi Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Tano shehi sikoi, v'garfoi v'tzlei, v'tzoled boyas hapas, ein zet tzli eish. One who has a oven, and he removes whatever coals that were there, and he then goes ahead and allows the carbon to become roasted in that tanur. So he says it's not considered to be tzli eish. Shenemar states tzli eish shtei pe'omim. The pasuk, the Torah says tzli eish twice, and therefore taima de gali rachman. And by Korban Pesach, the Torah reveals tzli eish shtei pe'omim, and therefore there's a hakpada when it comes to Korban Pesach. Halagali rachman nahavamina tzli eshu. But had it not been, if it's not the Korban Pesach, if it's something else, then I would say indeed it is sli'esh, whereby, in this case, when a person wants to then bake bread from the psoiles, not the psoiles, rather, the klipe orla, even though they have been removed, that's considered to be now a form of baking from that leftover klipe orla, whereby how can you say that it is mutter, even according to Manu Omar, who normally says it's osir? Omar le goli rachmona hasam v'yalfiyamine. The Torah reveals over there by Korban Pesach that indeed it has to be indeed where the eish is. Otherwise, it's not going to be sli eish. So when you remove whatever is inside and it becomes then baked, or the Korban Pesach becomes then roasted, then that itself is not considered to be valid. That is going to be not only by the Korban Pesach, but it's going to be a binyan av to learn out to all other places, including the case of klipe orla. So therefore, when that bread is baked after the klipe orla is removed entirely, it's considered to be valid, it's kosher. The boys emo, alternatively, you can say hasom taimo de kosev rachman esli eish shtei pamim. Over there, by Korban Pesach, indeed, over there it's unique, and therefore, because it says Sli Eish twice, there's a hakpada by Korban Pesach. And therefore, if you remove whatever was inside the tanur, then it's not going to be considered to be a valid Sli of the Korban Pesach. But Holoi Kosa Rachman Sli Eish Shtei Pa'amim. If it did not write Sli Eish twice, Havamina might think Ha'eish Kapi Rachmana, Va'afilu Gar Foinamit Sli Eishu. That it's the Eish that the Torah is makbid about, and therefore even if you remove, then it also is not then you also then have tzli eish. Aval hacha ha'etin the isura kokapi rachmana. But over here, when it comes to the removal of the eitzim, which is the orla, which is that which is osir bahana, that klipe orla, if you remove it, then halas niu. You don't have it, and therefore there's no kakpada. So again, when it comes to the Korban Pesach, it states it twice. There's a hakpada where the Torah says sli eish, and therefore I might think that so long as when it comes to the Korban Pesach, I have to have eish over there, and therefore in the Korban Pesach, if I remove the eish, then it's not good. It's not going to be a valid Korban Pesach. But in the case of the eitzim, there I might think that there's no hakpada. Kamash malan. There I would think that indeed, since it does not state it twice, then there's no hakpada, and therefore it would be considered to be a valid eish. Kamash malan, the whole hakpada when it comes to the orla, the klipe orla, is the actual wood that's being burned. That's what's asr b'hana. But if you have removed that wood, that klipe orla, then indeed the bread that is baked in that tanur is going to be mutter. The Gemara now brings the following brayso: Tanu rabbanon chotchoi v'nosnoi al gabe gecholim. One takes the Korban Pesach, and instead of roasting it on a spit, he makes slices on the animal. Doesn't certainly make it into pieces. It's all one shalem. But instead of roasting it on a spit, he roasts it on coals. Rabbi Oimer ani shezet sli eish. Rabbi says that I hold that this is considered to be roasted, and this is therefore a valid form of roasting Korban Pesach. We're talking about where the coals are then having some of the fire that emits from it. It's flickering. Rami le Rav Achadvui bar Ami le Rav Chizda. He asked the following: Mi amar Rav Rabbi Gecholim eish ninhu. Who said? Rabbi says that this is considered to be eish v'aminu michvas eish. We have a brisa that says a contradiction to this. It says in the brisa regarding tzaras, it says there's a type of tzaras that is michvas eish, where the tzaras develops in the burn of the skin. Eli elashenichve be'eish. The brisa says, I only know that which is burned by the fire, as the pasuk says, michvas eish. Nichve begecheles, if it's burnt, the skin is burnt by coals, beremetz, or hot ashes, bisid rotech begevasim roteach, or different types of lime, v'kol davar haba min ha'ur, and anything that comes from the fire source. The Gemara then says, le'sui chame u'ha'ur, even that which is water that has been boiled up by the fire. Minayin asked the Brisa, where do we know all of these things are also considered to be tzaras of the form that comes and develops from a burn? Talmud loymar, therefore the pasuk says, michve riba. It says michve twice as a ribui. So therefore, all of these different ways of causing a burn will be then a valid type of tzaras of the burning kind. Taima says the Gemara, however, the Rabbi Rachman and michva. That's all true by when it comes to tzaras. There's a special ribui where it says michva twice. Therefore, it includes all of these other types of forms in addition to eish. But hola Rabbi Rachmana michva gecholim lav eish ininhu. But if it doesn't have a ribui like it does over there, then if it's just gecholim, then it's not considered to be eish. So therefore, over here, in our case, when it comes to the carbon pesach, by putting the carbon pesach on the coals, the brisa indicates that that would not be valid. That would not be considered tzli eish. Omar le gecheles shel eitz lo itzrich krol ribui. When it comes to the flickering of the fire that comes from eitzim, that is not needing a ribui for. That's considered to be eish, because eish burns typically through the fire of wood. So therefore that is included. However, ki itzrich krol the gecheles shel mateches, the ribui that the mitzvah is talking about, that tzaras is referring to, that's the ribui of the eish that comes from mateches. That's the chiddush when it comes and says over there, michvas eish, teaching me that even when it comes to gacheles, that comes from a metal source of heat, that type of gacheles, that needs a ribui, and therefore when it comes to tzaras, it has a ribui. When it comes to carbon pesach, certainly that will not be valid. Ask the Gemara, "V'gacheles shemateches lav eish hu." Are you going to say that the gacheles of metal is not considered to be a form of eish? V'ho gabe bas kohen. It stays by a bas kohen who's mezaneh. She gets not the typical punishment of misas bezdin of skila or maybe chenek. She gets the punishment of sreifa. Dichsi ba'eish tisaref. She shall be burned by the eish. V'omar Rav, and Rav explained, masne, v'amar masne psila shel aver hayu oisin lo. We would pour down a psila shel aver, that means a hot lead down her throat, and that will be a fulfillment of the pasuk of be'esh tisaref, by burning her. That will be the misas bestin of sreifa. So you see over here that indeed, when it comes to something that's mateches, burning mateches, that itself is considered to be eish, and you don't need a ribui. And the Gemara, shani hasam dama kro be'eish tisaref. Since the pasuk be'eish tisaref the rabbis call sreifos habos mina eish. So here we have that the fact that it says tisaref, it says eish tisaref. If it just said the word eish, then I would know that it means that it's burnt. Why does it have to add the word tisaref? Tisaref over here comes to include these forms that will also then cause it to be burned, namely the aver of the metal. Says the Gemara, v'koshaken eish atzma, and certainly when it comes to eish itself. If that's the case, then the Gemara says, v'nakif lo chaviles moros v'nikle. Why don't we then surround her with wood and then burn her on the pyre? Why don't we give her that misa if indeed it says eish tisaref? Certainly eish is no less than the metal, and since that's the classical way of burning, why don't we burn her that way? Says the Gemara, Asya Sreifa Mibnei Aaron. We have a Gezerah Shava of Sreifa. The Bnei Aaron, Nadav ve'Avihu, they died by the Eish, and that Sreifa that burnt them was an Eish that went through their nostrils and burnt their insides, their neshama, their inner parts, whereby that's how they died. So the Gemara explains, there's a Gzeir Shava from Bnei Aaron. Ma lahalon sreifas neshama v'guf kayim. Just as their inside became burnt, which killed them, and their guf was still kayim, afkan sreifas neshama v'guf kayim. Similarly over here, when we then burn the bas kohen, it also has to be in the same manner that her guf is kayim. Ask the Gemara, if so, then why don't we then kill her through the boiling of water? Why dafka the aver, the psila shel aver? Answers the Gemara, mishum de Rav Nachman, because of Rav Nachman. What did Rav Nachman teach us? The Omer Rav Nachman Amar Kro. This pasuk says, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha." You have to love your fellow Jew like yourself, and therefore, if you chalila were then be put to death, you would want the death to be the least type of difficulty, of suffering that there is, including the least type of mutilation that there is. Boroloi misa yafe, says Rav Nachman. You have to choose for the person, for the fellow Jew, a misa that is yafe, and therefore we can't go ahead and burn her by the stake. That would be the first of all mutilation of the body. It also cause her more pain. V'chi me'acher di'ika Rav Nachman. Once we have Rav Nachman say that we have to borer la mison yafe, that means give her the most painless type of death, which has the most least of mutilation of the body, then why do we have to come onto a gezerah shava of Bnei Aaron to teach us sreifa of Bnei Aaron? Just as Bnei Aaron themselves, their insides were burnt, but their guf was kayim, so too over here, when it comes to the bas kohen, that her guf has to be kaim. We would already know that lechara from Rav Nachman. Says the Gemara, Amre, they said, Ilav gezerah shava. If we did not have the gezerah shava at all, then havamina sreifas neshama the guf kaim. La sreifa, I would not know that that's considered to be a sreifa. And since it says by the bas kohen that be'esh tisaref, I would not know that this is a form of misa, of sreifa. If I only had that you have to be bar misa yafe, neifush lo chavile zmoras tuva ki heichid the Thomas ba'agola. Then I would think that I would then surround her with all types of wood, and it would be such a big type of flame that it would cause her to quickly die. Kamash malon, we have therefore the Gzeira Shava says that the guf has to then be kayam. The Ella asked the Gemara, Be'esh lamali. So then why does it have to say Be'esh tisaref? Just say tisaref. Why say the word Eish if indeed we're talking about a different form, not coming from fire, but coming from a psila shel aver? Says the Gemara, La'apuke aver mi'ikaroi, to exclude a lead that is coming down from the ground, that is from its original source. Instead it has to be molten, it has to be then fired up and heated up by a fire. That's the type of psila shel aver that a woman who is a basya or a mezana is killed al misas bezdin, the misa of sreifa.